Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits Podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is Lestat's Kiss. And as always, is the featured cocktail in today's episode. This cocktail calls for a rimmed cocktail glass. The instructions say use 4 ounces of sugar, 2 ounces of beet juice, and 2 ounces of light Caro syrup. I just used simple syrup and red food coloring. I'm sure the effect is pretty much the same, except for the crunchy pieces of sugar. But, I don't want to put myself into a diabetic coma. For the cocktail, we're going to take our shaker with ice. To that, we're going to add pomegranate juice, 2 ounces. A lot of pomegranate juice. Next, bourbon. 1.5 ounces of bourbon. That's a lot of bourbon too. Chambord, 1/2 of an ounce. The instructions say 1/2 lemon juiced. I'm using juice from the plastic lemon. And Karen told me last week that that's probably a teaspoon. So that's what I'm going to do. It's not much. There we go. Of course, we don't want too much lemon anyway. Finally, maple syrup. 1 teaspoon or to taste. Of course, I'm using sugar-free. It's a little much, but it's sugar-free. Then we shake. Then we take our glass, our cocktail glass, which we have rimmed with the red sugary blood mixture, and we strain it in. Look at that, boys and girls. Just like we knew what we were doing. And there you have it, Lestat's Kiss. Not sure you can see the blood red rim, but it's there. Pretty good. Yeah, I like the Chambord. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
This week on the Scary Spirits Podcast, we watched the angsty gothic vampire film 1994's Interview with the Vampire. And let's be clear here, Anne Rice does not glorify or even sugarcoat the long life of a vampire. She stresses how hard it is to live forever. You've got to be able to roll with the changes. If you can't, you'll stagnate and die. Personally, I'm quite sure I would be awful as a new vampire. I mean, I'm way too old and set in my ways. I'd make a great get off my lawn vampire. I think the perfect vampire prime might be 24, 25. Some experience, sure, but still open to change. What do you think? Would you suck at being a vampire? Or totally kill it? Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm Greg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different but highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
I'm fabulous. How are you, Greg?
I am fantastic. Thank you for
Ooh,
asking.
I'm going to call that a match.
Is it hot enough for you, Karen?
It is. But I have some exciting news.
You do?
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, as you may or may not know, my dad has discovered that I have a podcast. 219 episodes in, and he's found out that I have a podcast.
I know it has come up at family gatherings. He just didn't hear or was
didn't pay attention. He is 90. So,
89.
Yeah, he's almost 90 in a couple months.
Not totally beat him in the 5K walk.
Yes, Greg beat the 89-year-old, and we're all very proud. No, but he said, "Wow, you sound so professional. That doesn't even sound like you." I don't know how to take that, Greg, except for as a compliment.
As you should, Karen.
That's what I'm going with.
As you should. You
So
go,
there you
girl.
go.
Karen, was this film your choice?
It was.
And what film have you chosen for us this week?
I have chosen the movie Interview with the Vampire from 1994.
Any reason you chose that film, Karen?
Well, yeah, because if you listen to these in order, tomorrow is Tom Cruise's birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Tom.
Yeah.
How old will Tom be? Do you know?
I do not. I'm worried that he's younger than me, though. I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I will say he did a good job in this movie.
Karen, Tom Cruise will be 63 years old.
Yes.
Yes, that's a win for both of us. Do we have a cocktail for
We
this
do.
film? And what would that be?
It's a cocktail called Lestat's Kiss.
And how would we make that?
It's give the kiss that lasts a lifetime. I like that. Well, you can be fancy and do a blood rim, which I did not do.
I did, but I didn't do it the way they said to.
So put a red rim on your glass if you want to be fancy. But for the cocktail, you're going to need 2 ounces of pomegranate juice, 1.5 ounces of bourbon, half an ounce of Chambord, half a lemon juiced, which is kind of iffy because there are big lemons and little lemons.
Well, last week you said it was a teaspoon, so that's what I used.
Well, okay. And a teaspoon of maple syrup or to taste.
Seems to work.
You're going to put all the ingredients in a cocktail shaker, add ice and shake and strain into a prepared cocktail glass, meaning you have the rim on it. Pretty simple, straightforward. This spooky bright red sipper is full of rich autumn flavor with bourbon, pomegranate, and raspberry. Perfect for a themed Halloween party or skip the blood treatment and enjoy it as an elegant fall drink. So mine's an elegant fall drink.
So they say it's a sipper?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a red sipper.
It is very fall-like. I'll give it that. The maple syrup goes well with the Chambord and...
Yeah, it's surprising. Wouldn't have thought of that combo.
But the maple comes later to it. So I didn't notice it like after a while. Like, oh.
Yeah, I could have put more in mine.
I'm getting it now.
I like the maple.
I do too. Should we give our friends and listeners time to make their own?
Kiss.
Lestat's
No.
kiss.
Kiss that they can make their own kiss that lasts a lifetime.
Is he a character in the film, Karen? Is that
I
why you
I
chose it?
believe he is.
Oh, okay.
Yes, let's.
Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Karen, might you have a brief synopsis for us of this 2 hour and 2 minute film?
I do.
Go on, tell us all the story.
Born as an 18th century lord, Louis is now a bicentennial vampire telling his story to an eager biographer. Suicidal after the death of his family, he meets Lestat, a vampire who persuades him to choose immortality over death and become his companion. Eventually, gentle Louis resolves to leave his violent maker, but Lestat guilts him into staying by turning a young girl, whose addition to the family breeds even more conflict.
Thank you, Karen. We are a match. Karen, please tell our friends and listeners everything you really enjoyed. Well, first, have you seen the film before, Karen?
I
I
have.
can't imagine you haven't. Have you read the novel it is based on, Karen?
I have.
Of course you have.
And many in the series.
Yes, I have seen the movie. I've seen it once before. This is my second time in like 100 years, but I've never read the book. And I imagine the book is a lot different.
It's not really that much. I mean, they're pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, of course, there are things in the book that are left out, and there are things that are shortened and things like that, but it's not bad. It's
All right,
pretty
well,
close
we'll get
as
to that.
those things go, But I haven't read the book in a very long time.
All right, then tell us everything you really enjoy about this film.
Okay, well, I'll start with I love the story, but I read the book. I found it on my parents' bookshelf when I was in graduate school, a couple of years after it came out.
I assume your mother had read it.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think it was my dad's, so I'm going to go with my mom had read it. I just took it off the shelf because it looked interesting. I'm like, oh, I think I'll like this. I didn't even tell her. I just took it, just like I used to take food from her cupboards and all that stuff. I found it so good. I just loved it. I couldn't wait to get home and see what happened next in it. It was like that kind of level of enjoyment for me. I really loved it. So it's kind of hard for me to review this film because of course unless it was terrible and I would hate it because they didn't do a good job or whatever, but I love this movie. So, but I'm probably biased. And having read the novel, it'd be interesting to see the difference between you watching it and me watching it because I read the books, multiple books. So I know the characters, I know what happens, I know how they feel, and I wonder if you miss anything in the movie by not having read the books, like subtleties and things. So I'm interested to hear about that. I think it's well cast. When this first came out, there was a lot of blowback that Tom Cruise was playing the main character, or one of the main characters, but I thought he was really good. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Tom Cruise. I'm indifferent for him, but I liked him in this. I think it's beautifully filmed. It's very gothic and very of the time, and it's just so beautiful as a film. Speaking of beautiful, I think this is Brad Pitt's beautiful peak. This and Legends of the Fall. I think he's at his prettiest in this film. He does a great job. Kirsten Dunst does a great job. There are interesting cinematic shots. There's really very little I don't like about it. Did you like it?
In general? Or do you want me to list specific things that I liked?
Well, first overall, and then.
Well, I've seen it before, as I said, as well. It came out in 1994, so I probably saw it in like 96 or something, right? On
Really?
video.
You didn't go to the theater?
Hell no. I
Oh,
went,
God.
Karen, those were the dark times. So I rented it from the Blockbuster.
I know I did. I remember watching it like late at night in my parents' basement.
Dark times indeed.
Yes, yes, indeed. So the very first thing I wrote is it's beautifully shot. And I didn't really remember anything that much about it. Right?
Really?
Yeah, from back in 1996. I wrote everyone has nice hair too. I like the hair.
Yeah, very nice hair.
The sets are,
Costumes are
it's almost,
beautiful.
oh,
Yeah,
I was just about to say, it's like a Hammer film. The sets are
yeah.
beautiful. The costumes are beautiful. The makeup is good.
The blood's good.
Yeah. And I made a note in my, when we go through it scene by scene that it's Stan Winston does the makeup. So, and he is the Godfather. Music is good.
Yeah, I had the
I
soundtrack. Of course I did, right?
yes. Yes. Were you listening to it in your room with candles chanting Latin?
No, but I would listen to it in the lab and at late at night, and there were other people there that would come and close my door.
At the lab where you had a severed head on a stick?
No, that was a different place
Okay.
where I was just working with my cells.
I wrote, I'm stealing something from you here, Karen. There's a lot of research papers that could be written about this film. I'm sure there have been.
There's a lot of undertones.
There is a lot. I wrote the acting is good. And you mentioned Tom Cruise, and I had read doing my due diligence and whatnot that yeah, a lot of people weren't pleased when he was cast. But I think he's fantastic. And I think this might be Kirsten Dunst. Is that her name?
I think so.
This might
Yeah.
be her best role. So it's kind of sad that she peaked that early, but she is absolutely fantastic.
She's good in Spider. I think she's got some Spider-Man role. But yes, as a
Well,
hold
no, but
she holds
she's
her own.
okay.
I don't know if she's like 12, 10, I don't know, but she holds her own with these two very established, high-powered actors in this movie, and she does not get overshadowed.
Yeah, she was impressive for a
I think
child actor.
they help her too. Like it's a group effort and everything, but they don't try to over. But she really holds her own with these two, which is impressive.
Most impressive. That's all I wrote down.
It's a slow burn. It's a long movie, but I just love it. So it didn't bother me that it was long like that. I wasn't just watching it. It's just so beautiful to watch. The people are beautiful. The sets are beautiful. There's a couple of shots that almost take your breath away. It's New Orleans. I love New Orleans. So a lot of it's filmed in there. But yeah, there's a lot of subtleties. There's a lot of pieces of it that could be their own stories, but you just keep going.
I didn't hate the time, how long it took, because I wasn't rushing. So it could have been like, I don't think any more than 15 minutes shorter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't
Hour
know.
45. I think that's,
Maybe, but having read the book, I don't know where they'd cut it.
yeah, well, I'm sure
They did cut, but
yeah,
they
they
get the
cut a
main
lot. I'm sure
points.
they did because, they always do.
Yeah, but they hit the main
Can't
points.
fit everything, what is it, 400 pages or some shit novel into an hour and a half movie. All right, Karen, was there anything you were disappointed in, especially after reading the books? And
I'll tell you what I was disappointed with, and I didn't remember it until I saw it, the movie. I don't mind Antonio Banderas in it, but his wig is horrible. I just thought his wig as Armand was horrible. That's all I have written down. And I remembered not liking it then.
not
There's
liking
just
him then, or
no
his
him.
wig?
He's fine. His wig is terrible. It looks like they got it at Spirit Halloween. No shade to Spirit Halloween, but this is a very high dollar movie. You can tell they didn't seem to spare expense. And then he's got this horror. It
Do you
looks,
think he's wearing a wig? I'm not
yeah,
sure he is.
he is.
I'm
100%
not
he
sure
is.
Tom Cruise and
I
Brad
don't think
Pitt
Tom
are.
Cruise or Brad Pitt are wearing wigs, but Antonio is wearing a
Okay,
wig. There's
go
just
on.
there's nothing else. I just like the whole, I don't know. There's just so many parts of it that I just love. I love how creative Anne Rice was with all this when she wrote the book. Do you have a list of things you didn't like?
I have a very short list, Karen. Is there like a mirror that they see their reflection in this film? This
Yeah, they
kind of
do.
breaks a lot of the lore, I feel like.
Yeah,
Which you're
I
if you're
noticed
a
that
if
too.
you're a vampire purist, you probably don't like that.
Especially back in the day, because we learned that the older mirrors use silver as their backing,
Yes.
and but there's no
But
mention of
but
that.
Brad Pitt's he explains it away, a lot of it. He says it's just folklore.
Right.
But yeah, you don't have to remake the wheel, Karen. The next thing I wrote is I don't like Antonio Banderas at all in this film. At all.
He's
Not just his
supposed to
hair.
be this just like smoldering, sexy, and he just didn't, it just didn't click there. It's
But did
fine.
it did it click in 1994, you think?
I don't know. I don't think I enjoyed it then either. I couldn't get past the wig. There are a couple scenes where he puts his hand in the flame and stuff. That's pretty good, but
I don't like him one bit. The last thing I have written is there are no sequels of this. Why is there no sequel to this film, Karen?
I don't think it did that well, to be honest. I don't remember,
There
but
is
I
a
don't.
standalone sequel, but it's not like a
No, and it was not good.
okay.
The Queen of the Damned, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because in this story, Interview with the Vampire, Lestat's kind of a dick, basically, especially in the book. And in the next book, The Vampire Lestat, you hear his whole backstory and all of a sudden you like him. That's why a lot of people like him, even though in the original story, he's not portrayed in a flattering light.
Because he's like he has no more fucks to give, Karen.
Kinda. But it's interesting. I do like, too, I didn't mention it, the juxtaposition of you go from modern, where Louis in the hotel room with the reporter, who is Christian Slater, and then as he's describing his story, we see it. So it's this back and forth of modern to the past, and it's really well done, too, I think. You
That's
didn't
all I have
mention
written.
you
That's all
did
I've written
get to
down.
see boobs,
Yeah, well, I
you
mean
know?
that's a given. I mean,
Well, and it does have sequel potential written
well,
all over it, and
yeah,
it just never went anywhere.
yeah. In the opening credits, it says "Interview with the Vampire Chronicles." I'm like, ooh, this is like a whole thing now. But no,
Yeah, it's
apparently
the
it wasn't.
books. The books are called The Vampire Chronicles.
Okay,
That's part of the title.
well, they didn't make any more. Well, one more, I guess. So that's all I have, Karen. What kind of cocktail rating do you want to give this film?
I think it's a 2. I think it holds up well from 1994 to now. It could have been made now and it would still be well done. I mean, there would have been a little more Technicolor, probably a little more CGI to make it a little more graphic, but I still like it. I still think it's a great movie. Are you going to argue?
So I wrote, as a film, I think it's probably a 2, but I'd give the story a 3.
Oh,
I
no way.
don't like, there's parts of the story I don't like. I didn't mention it, but things I didn't like, I assume the novel doesn't even have in it. But
Oh, I bet they did. I bet it does.
okay.
But we'll see. That's why I'd like to see, like I said, maybe you're missing things because when you read a book and you're watching the movie, you can fill in things because you sort of know the story.
Did you read the book first or see the movie first?
No, I read the book first.
Okay, so when you read the book first, you probably, as you're reading it, have a moving picture playing out in your head, and you had a vision of what probably Lestat looked like and what Louis looked like and what
Yeah, but they're not that far
Claudia looked
off.
like. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
They're pretty well
Described?
described. Yeah.
Okay.
Anne Rice is descriptive and can be very flowery, where there's a whole long paragraph on the garden outside a house in New Orleans or something. Like it's very, like it's, you know what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
There's no guessing if you're, I wonder what Lestat looks like. I mean, she describes him to a T. She's
Okay.
very descriptive
See,
to the
that's
point where you can skim a little bit like, yeah, it's a garden. Let's move along. You know?
see, that's stuff I don't know. And now I don't even remember where I was going with all that.
There were parts of the story you didn't like, that's all.
There were.
And you didn't know if they looked like they were supposed to, which they They do.
No, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't
But
know
for
what I don't know.
1994, they had vampiric eyes. They had the paleness. Like for the time, the makeup was very good.
Yeah, that's why I wrote the makeup's good. It's Stan Winston, for God's sake. We're reviewing a film, so I'll give it a 2
So
with
you'd
you.
give it a 2.5, which we don't do. So it's a 2. Give me the 2. It's my film. I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah, I'll just say there's issues with the plot. That's all I'll say. And the story. But the cinematography, makeup, all that shit, spot on. All right, Karen, would you like to hear a review from the time?
I would. Is it Roger?
We'll see.
What do you got?
First, I have to tell you, Karen, this has a 63% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. I think you might get this one. What do you think Google users think?
Well, it should be 99, but I'm going to go with 88.
Oh, 89, Karen.
Oh, come on. Just give it to me. Let me make my day.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. I had a feeling you were going to
I
pull
always
that
guess
one out.
around there. That's why. Okay, who you got to review it?
The review I have is from the Austin Chronicle, dated November 11th, 1994. I believe that's Veterans Day, isn't it, Karen?
I believe it is.
Just realized that. All right. I haven't read it, so I'm just going to read it all.
Don't let that slip out. Just
For the
go
most
for
part.
it.
We'll see. I'll edit as I go. It's not long. After the outrageous melodramatics flung between Anne Rice and seemingly everyone else concerning the casting of Pretty Boy Cruz in the pivotal role, the vampire Lestat, this is the fall movie audiences will flock to, sink or swim. It's comforting to know then that A, Rice and all her fans, including myself, was wrong, which she admitted. Cruz is fine in the role, and B, Oprah's a wimp. It's not a great genre movie in the sense that Murnau's Nosferatu was a great movie, and it's not even that original of a film, such as Catherine Bigelow's Redneck Vampire, Opus Near Dark. It is, however, a very satisfying film and surely the first in a long franchise.
Yeah, you would think.
It does, after all, bear the subtitle The Vampire Chronicles. Look at this. I'm right online with this guy. Mark Savlov is his name. For all 2 of you who have yet to sink your pointy little incisors into Rice's seminal tale, I would be one of those 2. It's the tale of a pair of vampires, the passionate, moral Louis, who abhors killing so much that he initially dines almost exclusively on the blood of rats after his vampiric inception, and the haughty, evil Lestat. Together they travel around colonial Louisiana until eventually tensions arise and they are set against each other as the centuries pass. Rice's book positively dripped spirituality, decadent homoeroticism, and heady atmosphere, and director Jordan thankfully does his best to keep the novel's unconventional spirit in the fore. Rice is also credited with the screenplay. He does an admirable job here, filling the frames with visions of a gutted New Orleans and draping tendrils of mist and fog around much of the action. The real cause célèbre, shockingly, is Cruz himself. He imbues Lestat with just the right amount of feral pomposity and animal lust, sucking on severed arteries and bathing his mouth in freshets of gore while a grim, sardonic grin plays on his perpetually pouting lips. It's a lot of alliteration there, I think.
Yes, it is.
Very Lestat. Pitt succeeds as well, although he's as apt to give a wooden line reading now and again as Keanu Reeves. I could go on for days citing pros, Dunst as the child vampire Claudia greedily whining, "I want some more," after her first suckling kiss, and cons, the bloated Hollywood feel Jordan runs into every now and again. But Oprah Winfrey said it best when she told Cruise the film was too dark for her. A better recommendation I could scarcely give. So it's too dark for Oprah.
Aw.
Guess that's good for the film. I did also print a review from Roger Ebert, Karen. Dated Veterans Day as well, 1994. Would you like to hear some excerpts of it?
Sure.
Although one of the characters in Interview with the Vampire begs to be transformed into a vampire and eagerly awaits the doom of immortality, the movie never makes vampirism look like anything but an endless sadness. That is its greatest strength. Vampires throughout movie history have often chortled as if they'd gotten away with something. But the first great vampire film, Nosferatu, knew better, and so does this one. The movie's unique glory is its look, created by cinematographer Philippe Rousselant and production designer Dante Ferretti. His credits include Scorsese's The Age of Innocence and Gilliam's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And here he combines the elegance of the former and the fantastic images of the latter into a vampire world of eerie beauty. The action, of course, largely takes place at night in old southern plantations and French quarter dives, along gloomy back streets and in decadent boudoirs. The film truly takes flight after the action moves on board a transatlantic sailing ship and then into the catacombs of Paris. There are scenes set in a vast underground columbarium where the vampires sleep on shelves reaching up into the gloom. That is one of the great sets of movie history. My complaint about the film is that not very much happens in the plot sense. The movie is more about the history and reality of vampirism than about specific events, although some action does center around the fate and fates of Lestat, he has an S in parentheses. The stronger plot engine might have drawn us more quickly to the end, but on a scene-by-scene basis, Interview with the Vampire is a skillful exercise in macabre imagination. I feel like he agrees with me. Film was good, but the plot lacked.
We all have our opinions.
Yes. All right, Karen, before we get into it, scene by scene, is it my turn next time?
After me comes you. So what do you got?
Oh, the film I've chosen next week, Karen, is another vampire film, shockingly enough.
We're on a roll.
It is the film Dracula from 1979.
Ooh. Why did you pick that?
Because, Karen, next week's episode comes out on July 9th. And the film was released in 1979 on July 13th. So it's like an anniversary.
Awesome. Do you have a drink to go with it?
I do, Karen. It's called the Sunburn Cocktail.
Ah, nice.
I may have one of these in Florida when this episode comes out.
I think you should. How do you make it?
We're going to need 1 ounce of tequila.
That's a good start.
1 ounce of triple sec, 2.5 ounces of cranberry juice to make it healthy. We're going to shake all the ingredients with ice and strain into a martini glass. Easy peasy.
Love it.
And you'll have to tune in next week to find out how it goes along with the film.
Yes. It's very well done, but it is subtle before you watch the film.
All right, so that'll be next week. All right, Karen, are we ready to get into it scene by scene?
We are. But before we start, I did watch my own DVD of this movie.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book because that's what the movie's based on.
Okay.
It was published in 1976 and has sold over 10 million copies worldwide. It gained significant popularity after the release of the movie. It's part of Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles series, which has collectively sold over 100 million copies. The book is credited with revitalizing the vampire genre in literature and has a dedicated fan base. It's been translated into multiple languages, contributing to its global sales figures. So it's a very, at the time, I don't know now, but for a while there, it was an extremely popular book.
All right. I do not have my own DVD copy of it, Karen.
So where did you watch it?
Did you have like special features like, director's commentary or anything like that? You could,
No, no, it was just
well, that sucks.
I believe it was a gift. So I'm not going to complain that,
Okay.
you know, you didn't get me the director's cut. What's wrong with you?
I watched it on Amazon Prime, Karen, where it is rated R for nudity, violence, frightening scenes, smoking, foul language, and sexual content.
All the good ones.
Almost all. No, I don't know. I could maybe think of another. But the film starts and we have credits. Shocking. And I wrote, apparently we're in San Francisco.
Yeah, it is San Francisco.
And then I wrote The Vampire Chronicles. So I'm like, ooh, there must be lots of sequels to this in the last 30 years. Right?
Well, there's a lot of book sequels.
And then I wrote Stan Winston because I know who he is and he did the makeup. And then I wrote Anne Rice. Of course, I knew Anne Rice wrote the novel it's based on and all this stuff. Then we have a picture of a building at like a five corners thing. And I wrote, I recognize that building on the corner. I've seen that building before.
It's very recognizable as San Francisco.
Yes. And we see an interviewer named Daniel interviewing Louis, right? Louis says he's a vampire. Daniel doesn't believe. But as Louis begins speaking, Daniel begins believing as he smokes a Marlboro.
He starts doing a few things. He moves around too fast for him to see. It's kind of a cat and mouse thing. Daniel was watching Louis, but Louis said, I was watching you watching me. And so he knows he could have killed him if he wanted to, but.
And then I wrote 1791. So that's where we are. That's where
Louis
starts,
says
apparently.
he hasn't been human for 200 years.
Then we get a backstory about Louis. He lost his wife and child.
It's interesting because he says I was 24, which back then means I was a man.
That's pretty old, yeah.
Back
For
in the
back
day,
then.
like has a wife and a child and loses both in childbirth, and he's just beside himself.
Yeah, I think that's pretty old for having a wife and child in 1791. I'm pretty sure they were a lot younger. But anyway,
he was the master of the plantation. I don't know if he would have been that, depending on. But he's rich. He has a plantation.
he inherited it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then we have a scene of Louis playing cards, and he gets accused as a cheat. And we kind of figure out, yeah, he just wants to die. He's just like pushing everyone's buttons.
Yes, they're gonna shoot him, and he just rips open his shirt, which was horrible. Terrible to see Brad Pitt like that. He's like, just shoot me. And
Are you being sarcastic, Karen?
No.
Okay.
Yes, I am being sarcastic. But we see from above Lestat's sleeve watching him.
Yeah, Lestat watches from an upper level railing thing. Next thing I wrote, it was a vampire that requested his wish to die. Does he say something like that?
He says, yeah, that he wanted to die, but like the man he was playing poker with didn't shoot him. Or he was trying to lose his wealth and his life. He wanted to lose everything. He was just wanted to die. And it was a vampire who accepted his challenge to kill him.
Yeah, might have been my dictation. So then we see Louis mugged by a man with a knife. Lestat saves him and bites him on the neck. And they fly up into the sky, and Lestat drops Louis into the Mississippi River, apparently. And then Lestat comes to see Louis, and he offers him eternal life.
Yeah, so Louis staggers back to his plantation. He's sick in bed. And then Lestat comes in and says, I'm going to give you the choice I never had. It's a famous line from the book.
I feel like he said this to a lot of people. But whatever.
No, he doesn't really, but...
All right. Next thing I wrote is Louis watches his last sunrise.
He accepts eternal life from Lestat. And then they're in a graveyard, And when Lestat does feed on him, you hear a heartbeat, which I thought was pretty cool, that quickens and then slows as he dies. And we
Yeah.
see him physically die, which takes like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he's a vampire.
Lestat slits his wrist and drops the blood into Louis's mouth. And right here I wrote, this seems very sexual. And in my notes I wrote homoerotic, but I wasn't sure if that was still proper. But hey, that review in 1994 said it, so I guess it is. Maybe. I don't know.
I think it's meant to be the whole feeding thing for sure. And the companionship. He chose another male to be his companion for that long. He could have chosen anyone, but he chose this
Yeah.
beautiful man.
Then Lestat explains to Louis that his body is dying and to pay no attention to it. You'll be fine. Just relax. And then
Like, this is when I think Brad Pitt was his prettiest. It's in my notes.
And then Louis looks around with his vampire eyes and he sees things other people don't. He's got special eyesight now, Karen.
Yep.
Go back to the interview. Daniel smokes another Marlboro. We get lots of things about vampire lore that he says it's just folklore, doesn't mean anything, but coffins are necessary, Karen.
Yeah, they talk about crucifixes and they can't be out in the light. But I think he even
Wooden
says
stakes. He mentions wooden
yes.
stakes too.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Lestat putting Louis in a coffin.
And there's a cool shot of him closing the coffin on top of him. And he says, I'll be here when you wake up, but you're going to sleep like you've never slept before, which I'm envious of.
Preaching to the choir, Karen. Then we have Lestat and Louis at a tavern, I wrote. Lestat seduces and bites the barmaid. He offers her to Louis. They kiss and Louis bites her. Lestat slits her wrists and drinks. Louis says he will not take her life. Lestat says he's already done it.
I've done it for you.
Moving on.
And Louis looks very uncomfortable. And they just throw a couple coins on a table and skedaddle. They're out. I think back in the day, dead bodies were a lot more common. You know, you could just kill someone in a bar and move about your business.
Hello, boys and girls. Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast. Karen and I really have a great time putting these episodes together. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider taking the time to leave a review wherever you listen. Reviews really help independent podcasts find listeners. The more listeners we have, the easier it is for people to find us. Now, back to the show.
And we have Louis and Lestat having dinner. Louis is apparently interested, and I wrote the maid here, but it's really a slave.
Yes, it's.
I kind of forgot it was 17, whatever it was. 61?
And he's on a plantation. Yes.
Yeah, 1791. He tells her to leave.
You kind of get the feeling that they've been intimate. It sounds like the way they interact, it feels like they've been intimate. She is concerned about him. She's
well,
a
that
slave.
comes later as well. But
Yes.
Lestat tells her to leave. He grabs a rat and bites its neck, putting its blood into a fine crystal glass, I wrote, Karen.
For Louis, yes.
Louis drinks.
Louis struggles because the slave is in a 1791 outfit where she's showing off some of her assets. He can see the vein in her neck. He's struggling.
Come back to the interview. Oh, Louis does not want to take a human life, I wrote. Come back to the interview. He says they go into town and Lestat kills 2 or 3 people a night. And apparently he likes killing aristocrats.
Because they taste better, he says.
And then we have like a party or something, and Lestat is with a young houseboy, apparently.
Well, they're gossiping. So it's an aristocratic ball, and there's a woman there, some sort of countess or something, who has a young boy with her, who he says, Lestat's telling Louis, that's Countess so-and-so. She could convince that young boy to kill her husband, and now they're together. But they target them.
Yeah, so we see Lestat with the young boy and Louis with the older woman. And the older woman...
Yeah.
says she's
Sorry.
old enough to be his mother. She was surprised that, he was
Showed an
interested.
interest, yeah. And she's got two small poodles with her. But again, Lestat chooses a young boy to take off by himself.
Dogs bark at Louis. He kisses the older woman's neck and kills the dog to drink their blood.
He kills the dogs, not the woman, and
Yes.
Lestat loses it.
And he runs in and breaks her neck, snaps her neck. They argue. Lestat tells Louis to keep eating what he's eating until he finally gives in. Next thing I wrote is voodoo. Karen, we have a voodoo thing here where people are dancing around fires and whatnot.
Well, Lestat is coming over to Louis's plantation. He's killing slaves. That's one thing, because they're pulling them out of the water, and Louis eating the
Oh,
chickens.
yeah.
Lestat says, "You're going to run out of chickens." But he doesn't care. He's killing, and all the slaves now they know something evil is there. And so they're starting their voodoo chanting. And
Lestat and Louis discuss Paris and the vampire who made Lestat. Louis again refuses to kill a human. Wrote slave worries about Louis. Again, Louis tries to get her to leave. And this is when I realized, oh, it's his slave and his plantation. He bites the girl on her wrist. She screams and he silences her. I guess holds her mouth shut or whatever. Outside, we have an angry mob with torches and pitchforks, I believe, Karen.
I think Lestat rides out on a horse past them and
Probably.
leaves Louis and the slave alone. It's a nice shot of him on the horse.
Louis brings out the girl to them. He tells them the place is cursed and their master is the devil. And then he frees them all and sets fire to his house.
I think he's killed her because the way he's holding her, she's either
That's what
passed
it
out or,
appears.
yeah.
Lestat enters and he is angry because Louis is burning their house. I read.
Yes. You'll have us living in a field. But
the
there is a
slaves-
point in here where you see Louis in a mirror as he's knocking over all
Yeah.
the candles. Yeah, so you do see that here.
I wrote the slaves all rejoice outside. Then Lestat and Louis are in a cemetery. Louis discusses being in hell with the interviewer. Cut back to the interview. Cut to Lestat with a couple working girls, I wrote, Karen.
Yes.
He bites one of them. Well, I think one's dead as soon as we go
Yes,
to
he's
him.
worn her out, he tells her friend.
And he bites
He's
the other.
cheeky. Lestat is cheeky, like in a very horrific way, but he's always got a line, charming.
Then Lestat bites the other one on her breast and she bleeds. Of course, she doesn't realize it at first. Louis enters. Lestat kills the girl. She gone. He drains her blood into another fine crystal cocktail glass, Karen. He offers it to Louis, but again, he resists. But then I wrote, oh, the girl's not gone quite yet. She starts moving around. Lestat puts her in a coffin, and then he sits on the lid. And he tries to get Louis to kill her.
Yeah, end her suffering, he says.
Yeah.
But
And he refuses, and then Lestat just kills her.
so Louis is distraught and goes out to find some rats.
Louis walking around through the streets of New Orleans feeding on rats.
And the plague has come.
Yes. He finds a young homeless girl whose mother died from the plague. Louis bites her.
First, he
Lestat-
comforts her. He comes in. Her mother's dead, and she's just holding the mother's hand, crying. Louis comforts her,
Mama!
hugs her, and then Louis bites her.
Lestat comes in and teases him. And then he starts celebrating by dancing with the corpse of the mother.
Yeah.
He's doing a ballroom dance with the corpse of the mother. Louis runs away. Cut back to the interview, and he admits he'd never felt so alive.
Having finally had young blood in him.
Lestat comes to see Louis in the sewer. Again, he tries to convince him to take a human life, so he hasn't killed anyone yet. Lestat takes Louis to see Claudia, who is the little girl he bit. Lestat wants to turn her into a vampire. At first, Louis resists, but then he gives in. Claudia drinks Lestat's blood. Apparently, I wrote, she's very thirsty.
Yes, she really digs in. She won't stop. He has to rip her off.
So then her hair grows long and she dies. Well, I don't know why her hair grows long. I don't get that.
I think it's just a cool effect.
But she wants more.
Yeah, that's the first thing she says is, I want some more. So you kind of get the feeling she's going to be a little ruthless.
So then Lestat calls for the servant girl, and Claudia feeds on her, I guess. Then we have scenes of Lestat being like a doting father to her. He tells her, Mama has gone to heaven as well as the servant girl. They all go to heaven. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're sending them to paradise. You're doing them a favor. And then Lestat uses Claudia to get Louis to stay. I wrote.
Yeah. So there's a lot, they both lavish affection on her, but Lestat teaches her how to play the piano and all these things, but Louis is her emotional support. And she turns out she's a fierce killer. And Lestat yells at her constantly through the whole movie, not in the house. You don't kill in the house, but she doesn't listen. It's just a recurring thing over and over.
Cut to the interview. Daniel has to flip the cassette over in the recorder, Karen.
Yes, back in the day.
Then we cut to a seamstress, cuts her finger, and Claudia bites her, and she go.
But
So
you
she's-
learn, yeah, about Claudia. So they say Louis admits she was ruthless. She would pretend she was lost. She would sit on a bench by herself, pretend she was lost, and then someone would come and try to help her and she'd kill them. Or the seamstress would come and into the house and she would kill her. And Lestat was not in the house.
And
Never
also,
in the house.
and also Claudia and Louis share a coffin until she wanted her own. But even after she got her own, she still crawled into his in the middle of the night. Then we have her crying to a woman, whatever, she gone. Then we have the piano lessons, a doll maker.
She's killing all of them. She killed her piano teacher. She kills the
Kills them
doll
all.
maker.
Lestat scolds her, not in the house, whatever you said. Then we cut to Claudia playing piano for people. And they just kill them all, apparently, at this
Because
recital.
Louis said, yeah, they killed entire families together, both of them. She was just as lusty for blood as he was.
Time passes. They are Americans now. The melting pot, Karen. The melting pot of America. Claudia wants to be like a woman they are watching through a window. They're kind of peeping on her, Karen.
Yeah.
But,
This is-
she's up there with her drapes open, just getting naked. What are you going to do?
But Claudia's realizing she's not going to grow old. She's going to stay. Her mind is getting older because she's aging, but her body will never age. So she's always a child, but she's also an adult.
Yeah, she wants to be a grown woman. And we see a scene where Lestat gives Claudia a doll every year on the same day. And she says he dresses her like a doll and she is tired of it. And then we see she has the corpse of the girl that she wanted to be like.
Buried in the dolls.
Yeah. And then Claudia cuts her hair. She has a little tantrum and cuts her hair. She's very angry. And then she runs away and then she screams because her hair goes long again because she sees it in a mirror.
Well, or she can just feel it.
All right. Looked like a mirror. That's the first time I
It was
wrote
probably
mirror.
a mirror. Yeah.
She blames Lestat for making her what she is. She slaps him, but his wounds heal instantly. Like she scratches his face.
Yeah.
And then Louis tells her of her situation. And she hates them both, apparently, now.
He tells her that she's never going to grow old, but you're never going to die. And Louis tells her that Lestat made her, but he did feed on her. So that's when she gets mad.
Then I wrote, Claudia loves Louis. She thinks of him as her parents. And she tries to get Louis to leave Lestat. Claudia confronts Lestat. She says she wants to make peace with him.
I'm like, she's up to something. She brought him a present.
Yeah, Lestat playing a harpsichord, Karen, not the
And
piano,
he says,
not the pianoforte we saw earlier. It's a harpsichord.
I brought you a present. He says, I hope it's a woman with endowments you don't possess.
Yeah, I wrote, he's not nice. That's what I
No,
wrote.
he's just not a nice guy.
Well, he has no more fucks to give, Karen.
Well, he's old. That's what happens
Exactly.
when you
That
get
is what
old.
happens.
But
Claudia
she
has
pretends, oh, you look like you haven't fed enough. Your color's not good. She says, I brought you these twins drunk on brandy wine.
two young boys. She says she forgives him. Lestat feeds, and then she tells Lestat that she killed them with laudanum, Karen. Lots of these films we do have laudanum in it.
Yes,
It keeps the
good.
blood warm, apparently.
Yes. And
But
he's furious that she let him drink dead blood. I guess that really is a bad thing in the
yeah,
lore.
he begins to panic, and then Claudia slits his throat, and it looks like he bleeds out.
Louis upset because the blood's coming towards them and they actually have to step back, but he's not happy with her.
Yeah, and
But he
all
loves her.
and all Claudia wants to know, should we burn him or bury him?
She's brutal.
They decide to put him in the swamp instead.
Not a wise choice.
I'm not sure it matters. Louis still feels remorse. Claudia, not so much, I wrote. Cut to the interview again. Talks about and Claudia and Louis book passage to Europe, their transatlantic cruise. We see Claudia doing some research, apparently, about vampires. I don't know
Yeah,
what.
she's obsessed with finding other vampires. So she's reading old books and legends.
Then doorbell rings.
They're packing up to go on their
Yes.
trip. Yeah.
Louis thinks it's the carriage to take them to the boat, but it's Lestat. He walks in and plays the piano. I wrote, he don't look so good though.
No. But it's important that they put him in the swamp because he says he drank alligator blood, snakes, toads, all the putrid life in the Mississippi, he says. That's how he recovered. So maybe if they had buried him or burned him, they would have been better off.
Next thing I wrote is a cheesy line. He says something really cheesy right here. I didn't write down what it was.
You've been a very, very naughty little
Yes.
girl.
Yes.
And
That's
he
what he
goes
says.
after her.
Yeah, Lestat goes after Claudia. Louis throws a lamp at him and sets him on fire. And then they run out of the house. Lestat burns as Louis and Claudia go to the ship. They sail away as the whole quarter burns.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shots because it's shot from behind them on the ship, watching all of New Orleans just go up in flames.
Next thing I wrote is people on the ship die.
He says there were no rats on the ship, but a plague hit the ship. But he and Claudia were immune.
And I wrote, Louis regrets living in darkness. Back to the interview, Louis talks about looking for other vampires and more about vampire lore. He says they were in Paris, September 1870.
So Paris was the mother of New Orleans. And Louis says he always wanted to go to Paris because he was Creole. And I looked up, it says in New Orleans, Creole refers to cultural identity in a distinct community with roots in the city's colonial past. It encompasses people of mixed French, Spanish, African, and Native American ancestry and is associated with a unique culture, particularly in food, music, and language. Louisiana Creole is a French-based Creole language spoken by some Creoles, but many use French or English as their everyday languages. Today, if someone identifies as Creole in New Orleans, it's likely to be a person of mixed racial ancestry with deep local roots and with family members who are Catholic and probably have French-sounding surnames, Franco-African Americans. And in case you're curious, the difference between Cajuns and Creoles, Cajuns are a subset of Louisiana Creoles. Today, common understanding holds that Cajuns are white and Creoles are black or mixed race. Creoles are from New Orleans, while Cajuns populate the rural parts of South Louisiana.
Next thing I wrote is Louis spoiled Claudia. That's what I guess he's what he's telling the interviewer. And he was going to give up his search for vampires when one found him. So Louis meets Santiago and Armand.
Yeah, Santiago is an annoying vampire.
He is. Armand gives him a card, like a business card thing, and it says, Theater des Vampires. And he invites him to come, and he assures Louis that no one will harm him.
Yeah, he'll be safe. So this part of the novel and the movie always freaked me out a little bit because it's a theater where vampires pretend to be human, pretending to be vampires. And the audience doesn't know that that's what's happening. So I always thought that was creative and intriguing and scary.
So here's what I wrote, Karen. Louis and Claudia go to a show. I wrote, vampires pretending to be humans, pretending to be vampires.
It's freaky, I think.
Then we have a young girl on stage. She asks for help, but of course
Yeah, and
everyone thinks it's part of the
she
show.
yes, that she's begging for help and the audience thinks it's all part of the show, which is genius, right?
Then they kind of strip off her top, right, or her clothes, and we see two bare breasts. Then Armand makes his grand entrance. He tells her to obey as he strips her of all her clothes, Karen. Full frontal nudity. Then he bites her, and as he does, Armand stares at Louis. Then the
Yeah.
other vampires just jump right in and feed, and the curtain drops.
So he gets the first taste. He does whisper in her ear, no pain, no pain. So he kind of hypnotizes her that, what's going to come is. But the audience is a little uncomfortable. But then the curtain falls and everybody scoots out of the theater. Like, what did I just see?
Yeah, Armand takes them to the catacombs, I wrote, and then he offers Louis a boy to taste, question mark.
Yeah, it looks like they
They have a
have,
boy with lots of bite marks on him.
yeah, they have food supply.
Louis questions Armand. He wants to know the vampire history, and he questions good and evil. Armand says he knows he's the oldest living vampire in the world. Louis and Claudia leave.
But you can tell Armand likes Louis. Like, there's supposed to be a strong connection there. I don't really feel it as much in the movie, but definitely in the book, you feel like they want to be together, those two. And in this movie, Claudia senses it, but you don't really get that chemistry between those two, which is, I think, kind of a negative of the film.
Antonio Banderas, he's terrible. That's why. But anyway, Louis and Claudia leave. Louis thinks of Lestat and Armand reads his mind. He tells him the punishment for killing your own kind is death.
That's Santiago that reads his mind.
Oh, is it Santiago? Yeah. Okay. Claudia tells Louis that Armand wants him for his companion. So Claudia knows, like,
Claudia can sense it. Yeah.
She's hip to it. Claudia wonders if she should let Louis go. Louis tries to comfort her. Cut to another vampire play, apparently. Louis explains to Armand that Claudia is his daughter.
They meet behind. So while the play's going on, they're meeting like in the depths, just the two of them.
Louis says he is at odds with his existence. Armand tells Louis he is beautiful. He says he knew Lestat. He knew him well enough not to mourn his passing. And that was kind of funny. Louis, I wrote, is happy now that he has Armand as a teacher. Next thing I wrote is Claudia brings Louis a companion, question mark, a woman.
Well, Armand calls Louis. Armand is the oldest vampire and he's bored with all the vampires from the theater. There's just nothing there for him anymore. And he calls Louis a vampire with a soul and he finds it intriguing. Then he also calls him beautiful, which is also intriguing. But yes, Claudia brings Madeline, the doll maker, and she yells at Louis, "You have to make me a companion." She tried it. She doesn't have the strength to do it. She's too young because she knows Louis is going to leave her. Do it! She starts screaming at him because he does not want to do it.
Yeah, he says he cannot. Claudia blames him for making what she is. She wants Louis to give the woman to her before he leaves. So she wants like a mother figure or whatever, because apparently Madeline has lost her daughter, and she's looking for a daughter, and
Madeline's all in. She
mother.
Knows what it all means. She's like, okay, I'll do it.
Louis bites Madeline. She turns.
Because Claudia's screaming at him to do it.
Louis tells Claudia that when Madeline dies, the last part of him that was human died as well. So then vampires run in from the theater and grab them and take them to the catacombs. Santiago proclaims death for Claudia and Madeline.
And they're going to hole up, they put Louis in a box, a
Yeah,
metal
Louis is
box.
to spend eternity in a box. Louis yells for Armand. They put Louis in a coffin and drag him away. They put Claudia and Madeline in a well and seal the entrance as the sun begins to rise. So I wrote right here, well, later I wrote, this was all for nothing. Lestat's not dead. What are they punishing them for?
But
He
everybody
comes back
thinks
again.
well, everybody thinks he's dead.
All right.
Everyone does. But
So
when they put Claudia and Madeline in the well, like, she's a vampire. She can't climb out of there. I mean, I know she's a young vampire,
true.
but it's been like 30 years or something, I think, right? You see that it's stone. I don't know. I always thought when I
Yeah, I
saw
don't know.
just in the movie, like I
I
get,
imagine they have, well, we know Louis has superhuman strength. He picks up interview and like pins him to the ceiling later, you know?
right, but he's older then. He's 200 years old then. That's the hope. But
I
I
mean, but
don't,
their
it just
muscles
seemed
are
like
what their muscles are,
it's
you know?
just a tiny little thing when you're watching the movie. You're like, it looks like you could climb out of there. I mean, if it was a slick side, sure.
True.
But whatever. It's a nitpicky thing. But
It
it's
also
very Edgar
almost
Allan
looked
Poe.
like there was like even like a ladder
Ladder.
kind of thing you
I
could
sort
reach,
of, but
but
I think
whatever.
it's very tall. I think that's part of the issue.
Right. Sun begins to rise.
Because they can
Next
see, they're stuck in there and they can see the stars. So they know.
next thing I wrote is it burns.
Yes.
So then
And it's
Armand,
dramatic because Claudia and Madeline cling to each other as the sun comes out. And
yes.
Louis knows it when she's gone.
Armand frees Louis from his coffin. He says he cannot save Claudia. He tries to stop Louis from looking for her. He finds their bodies and they are turned to ash. Louis stares at the other vampires, but they are not intimidated in the least, Karen. Go back to the interview, and Louis is crying. So we learned that
Still,
vampires can cry.
yes. And it still affects him.
Cut to the theater. I wrote Louis spreading flammable liquid question mark.
Looks like wine, like it's red, you
Could
know?
be. He lights all the coffins of the vampires on fire, and then he beheads some as they rise out of their coffins. He slices Santiago in half. He gone. Theater goes up in flames.
He does it right at dawn, right before dawn. So they're all sleeping in their catacombs and he just burns the place down.
Armand arrives as Louis runs out in a funeral coach, and the boy we saw earlier is
Is
driving.
driving. That's one of the coolest shots. The horses come running up because it's very Dracula. They're black horses, they have the feathers, and he pulls Louis into the carriage before the sun can get to him.
Armand admits that he knew what Louis would do. Armand tells Louis he can teach him to be beyond regret. Louis blames Armand for letting Claudia burn, and he declines to be Armand's partner. Louis comes back to the United States and enjoys watching movies so that he can see the sunrise.
Yes, so he's watching, I don't know if we're quite there, but I think we are. The movie he walks out of
Yes, in the spring of
is,
1988.
well, it says December 2nd, 1988 was when it came out, Tequila Sunrise, which if you
Yes.
if you want to know the plot, in a seaside California town, best friends Mac and Nick, who are Mel Gibson and Kurt Russell, are on opposite sides of the law. Mac is a former drug dealer trying to clean up his act, while Nick is a high profile detective trying to take down a Mexican drug lord named Carlos. Soon, Nick's loyalties are put to the test when he begins an affair with restaurateur Joanne, a love interest of Mac's, unwittingly leading his friend into a police orchestrated trap. I remember seeing that movie,
I do too.
but there is a sunrise in it.
So he's in New Orleans and he walks out of the theater, and as we do see Tequila Sunrise on the marquee. He's walking through the streets and he smells decay. He goes to investigate.
And he's in Lafayette Cemetery number 1. is where he smells death. Not strong enough for humans to smell, but he knows there's old death. Lafayette Cemetery Number 1 is an historic cemetery in the Garden District neighborhood of New Orleans, founded in 1833 and still in use today. The cemetery takes its name from its location in what was once the city of Lafayette, a suburb of New Orleans that was annexed by the larger metropolis in 1852.
He enters an old mansion and finds Lestat. Lestat says he is sorry for turning Claudia into a vampire. Lestat kind of relives his glory years here.
Lestat's in bad shape. So it's one of those things where you're talking about you could write an English paper. Lestat, at a certain point, and it's mentioned in the film, and I can't remember if it's Armand, somebody says it. Everybody thinks, oh, you're going to be a vampire, you're going to live forever, and everything's going to be great. But you have to learn to change. And it's very difficult to change with the times. So, just that my 90-year-old dad can't figure out how to listen to a podcast, what to press. He doesn't even know what a podcast is. You have to be able to change, and it's very difficult to change. I think especially without a companion or someone in the current time to guide you. That's why we all yell, "Get off our lawn" at a certain point. Like we get old, we don't change anymore. We don't want to change. We're set in our ways, and Lestat's not looking good and there's actually rats on the ground. So he's been eating or drinking rats.
So then we see a helicopter with searchlights, and Lestat is scared. Louis tells him the lights can't harm him.
It's fake light, he says.
Lestat tries to get Louis to stay with him. He refuses. Cut back to the interview. Louis says he does not know what happened to Lestat after that. Louis says he is empty. Daniel says it cannot end like this. Daniel would like to be like him. Daniel tries to get Louis to take him. Louis puts Daniel against the ceiling and
he says, "I'll be your companion." But Louis like, "You've learned nothing from what I've been telling you."
Asks him if he likes being food for the immortals. Daniel runs out.
Because Louis is gone. He's gone out a window. And he runs out to his car, which is what?
A Ford Mustang convertible. I wrote, maybe a 67 question
I was
mark?
thinking 66, but I didn't know. But before you go any further, they're going to go across the Golden Gate Bridge. And I just want to tell you.
Well, he drives past Fisherman's Wharf.
Yes.
I wrote that.
The Golden Gate Bridge is a suspension bridge spanning the Golden Gate. It's 1 mile wide, straight, connecting San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean in it connects San Francisco. Well, it goes across to Marin, whatever. Yeah, Marin County. So it goes from the northern tip of San Francisco Peninsula to Marin County, carrying both U.S. Route 101 and California State Route 1 across the strait. There's a pedestrian area and a bicycle lane. And I've actually walked across it. It's very cool.
I've driven across it.
It's a little scary.
I've driven across it.
But it is one of
I wouldn't want
the
to walk across it.
It's windy, right? I wouldn't want to ride a bike, but walking wasn't bad. A lot of the races they do will go across the bridge, but like the 5Ks and stuff. But I just walked across it as a tourist with friends. The bridge is one of the most internationally recognized symbols of San Francisco and California. The bridge opened to the public on March 27th, 1937. And it's quite possibly, from one of the guidebooks, the most beautiful, certainly the most photographed bridge in the world. At the time of its opening in 1937, it was both the longest and tallest suspension bridge in the world.
So Daniel, the interviewer, drives across this immaculate Golden Gate Bridge.
This lovely, beautiful bridge, listening to his tapes. He's got his little cassette player.
He begins listening to the cassette tape of the interview. Lestat grabs him from the back seat and bites him. Lestat grabs the wheel. He appears to be getting younger, I wrote. He looks pretty good right here. He's almost back to where he was at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, he's rejuvenated.
He listens to the interview, and then he accuses Louis of whining.
Which he does. I've listened to that for 200, or whatever he says, 200 years I've had to listen to that.
Then he gives Daniel the choice he never had. He laughs, and then we have Sympathy for the Devil playing, Karen.
By Guns N' Roses.
Yes, but originally by the Rolling Stones.
Yes. I love the ending. That's not the ending of the book, but
Well, that's what going credits the end. And I wrote right here, over here on the side, book question mark.
that's the only thing that's not in the book.
And that bothers me.
Daniel doesn't get turned into a
It
vampire
feels like
till
that feels like a movie ending to me. Like they just, I don't know. I didn't like it. Don't
he
know how the
does.
book
Daniel
ends.
does. He appears in other books later on, and he does eventually get turned into a vampire. I can't remember by who, but if it was Lestat or not, but
Yeah, I don't know
he's
how the
around
book
for a long
ends,
time.
but this movie ending feels cheesy to me.
I loved it back in the day. I still thought it was good. Because Lestat, like, you're starting to feel sorry for him. You think, oh, it's all, and then boom, he's back. Gotta,
It feels cheesy. It's
yeah,
cheesy.
I like it. I guess I like cheesy.
Uh, you're 30 years younger.
I still like it now. I love that they had Guns N' Roses doing it. I love the sympathy of the devil. I love the whole thing. I still think it's good.
All right.
Bring on the cheese.
Cheapens it to me. And did
It's,
you enjoy your Lestat's kiss?
I did. I want more. I want some more.
I know mine evaporated quite a while ago. I want some more too, Karen.
It's, the maple syrup really adds
Yeah, I
something
like
to
the
it.
maple syrup.
Yeah,
I used
it,
sugar-free maple syrup, of course. And
I didn't.
I suspect that you're trying to put me in a diabetic coma.
I
Your
keep
drinks
trying,
kept getting sweeter and sweeter.
just like me.
Like
It's
this
just,
was supposed to have like sugar on the rim and maple syrup and good
yeah,
God.
corn syrup on the rim, dipped in syrup or dipped
Yeah,
in sugar.
yeah.
I'm trying. Look at you, sugar-free maple syrup. Foiled again. Foiled again. No, I think it's really
I
good.
think you're trying to get me to go into a coma on this podcast before it ends.
Well, that would add some excitement. It's definitely a fall drink. A lot of times we do these and we say, "Oh, it's a lanai. It's for the lanai." This one you could sit around the fire, and drink. You can drink it any time of year, I'm not saying, but it doesn't have as much, it's not as refreshing as some of the other drinks we have. It's just a tasty, subtle, fall flavored drink.
I agree. And I'm not a whiskey connoisseur, but the smokier the whiskey, probably the better for this.
Yeah, I agree. Would add that just final touch.
Yeah.
Look at
All
us
right.
getting all whiskey smarts. Like, well, after 219 drinks or whatever it is,
I'm still
217,
not a whiskey snob, so.
it's like, oh, it'd be better if it was a little smokier. Yeah, yeah, it would.
All right. Anything we learned today, Karen?
I tried not to learn a lot because, again, this movie is long and but we learned about the Golden Gate Bridge, about Interview with the Vampire book, what Cajun and Creole mean, about the Lafayette Cemetery #1. Is that it?
Tequila Sunrise, the
Oh,
film.
Golden
Tequila
Gate
Sunrise.
Bridge. Did I say that
Starring,
already?
no,
I
I
might
don't
have.
know. Starring Mel Gibson and
Yeah.
Kurt Russell. And was was Goldie Hawn in that? Or
No,
was
it's
it
Michelle
someone else?
Pfeiffer.
Oh, yes, Michelle Pfeiffer. That's right.
Yeah. All big stars at the time. I should have done a little bit about Guns N' Roses or Sympathy for the Devil, but I did not. Save it for another day.
All right. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Well, we need to thank our listener. There's so many podcasts out there. We really appreciate you spending time with us. What about you, Greg? Who do you need to thank?
Karen, I'm going to thank our friends and listeners in the great state of California.
Ooh, I hope they keep listening because they're featured in this one. The
Yeah,
Golden State,
the Golden State. Yes,
I think. Isn't that what it's called? Is that what
I
it
think it's
is?
right. It's like a golden bear thing. I don't know.
Well, they do have the bear, yeah, on the flag.
Well, shit, you used to live there, Karen.
I know, but
I have nieces and nephews that live there, and
I only
brother-in-law,
lived there
sister-in-law.
17 years.
Oh, well, then never mind. What the hell?
Yes, it is the Golden State from the Gold Rush.
Of course. And I need to also thank the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please, drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.